Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 24 transfer plans. I've got one free transfer and we need to start preparing for the upcoming blanks and doubles. If you enjoyed today's video and you get any use out of it, please do smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So before we take a look at my team for Game Week 24 and my current transfer plans, let's very briefly review Game Week 23. I scored 86 points, and that is actually now a 5th green arrow in a row. So I'm actually starting to move in the right direction. I'm now currently ranked about 160k, not far off the top 100k. And then once we get there, that's where I'd like to be at this stage in the season. So not really that far off. I'd love to know down below in the comments, how many points did you score in Game Week 23? Did anyone break 100 points? I've seen a few people that managed it, so let me know if you did down below in the comments. And unfortunately, it was a very swingy game week. And the reason that I say that is there were quite a few assets that, for lots of them, maybe are only owned by like 50 to 60% of managers that scored very, very well. And even then some differentials that scored sort of 15 points plus. And it came basically down to, did you own the likes of Watkins, Richarlison, Foden? And for a lot of people, did you captain one of them? And if you owned some of these big scorers and you captained one of them, then you're probably in a brilliant position. Luckily, I owned most of them, if not all of the big ones, but I didn't actually get the captaincy decision correct, which is the only reason that it wasn't a massive green arrow. But in all honesty, if I didn't captain Haaland, I would have captained Palmer. I wasn't really going to captain Foden, Richarlison or Watkins. I did briefly consider Watkins, but I'm almost certain I would have captained Palmer. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, in another world if I'd have captained Watkins, because it just wouldn't have happened. My team has basically been skipping leg day. My defense is a disaster. Pau Torres and Taylor are still flagged and are still not playing for me. Dubravka, Porro, Trent and Gabriel got me a grand total of 2 points between them. So the defense and goalkeeper situation continues to be really, really disappointing. But luckily, all of my attackers played, got minutes, and got returns as well. So really, really nice game week, but massively carried by the attack. And the thing is, I don't even look at any defenders. I know Trippier got a 9-pointer, but I don't overly want to own him at the moment. I don't look at any defenders and think, I really want to own them instead of mine. It's like, if I could in an ideal world, I just wouldn't play with any defenders. Because I look, and we'll discuss this when we move on to the transfer plans, but I'm like, if I do remove Pau Torres or Taylor, I've got no idea who I even pick up, because with fixtures, form, data, all of this stuff, there just aren't many standout defenders. For the attackers, I'm actually extremely shocked about the players that did go big. Apart from maybe Ollie Watkins, because he was playing against the worst side in the league. But Foden, I was telling people to bench Foden on the deadline stream. I'll hold my hands up. I got this one completely wrong. I thought there was a good chance he wouldn't play, because I thought Bernardo Silva would be on the right. I thought KDB and Haaland could play, and I thought Alvarez had a chance of starting. All of that happened, but Foden then played on the left, and he actually looked very, very good. I thought in that first half, he was okay, but he didn't do that much. But in the second half, he was much, much better. And overall, from both an FPL and football perspective, it was an excellent performance playing off the left. We'll have to see if that continues for him. But I didn't see a world in which Foden got 2-3 returns in a game against Brentford away. I thought a maximum of 1, and I thought there's a chance, like I said, that he didn't start. I knew that, again, Saka was much better at home, but I wasn't necessarily expecting a goal and bonus points for him. Richarlison, I know he likes to play against his old club, against Everton, and we know how good he has been recently. But again, did I expect a 15-pointer? Not particularly. If I were to predict the 2 players in my team that were going to go big, it was probably Gordon and Palmer, and obviously Haaland, given the fact that I gave him the armband. And they're 3 of my lowest scoring forwards or attackers. So I kind of called this game week all wrong, in all honesty. And I'm very lucky to come out with a really good score. I'm also very lucky that I didn't really have a difficult benching decision this week. If Darwin had an even remotely better fixture, let's say Darwin had something like Manchester United or Spurs, rather than it being Arsenal away, which is the most difficult fixture in the league, I would have benched Foden. There's no world in which I would have benched Darwin unless he had the most difficult fixture in the league. And of course, he was flagged, but it was more to do with the fixture. So I got very, very lucky that I had a pretty easy benching decision. So if you did get the benching decision wrong this week, it is a very difficult week to get it right. So I don't need to blame yourself. As long as you were happy with your decision going into the game week, that's all you can say. And I think for people that bench the likes of Foden or Richarlison, if you have 8 good attackers, it's very difficult to try and work out which one to bench. And this is kind of a macro point now. Going forward, if you've got 8 attackers, which pretty much all of us will, we are going to get benching decisions wrong on a regular basis, because it's very difficult to predict football. Football is so unpredictable. If it wasn't, everyone would be betting millions every single week and winning millions as well. That's the whole point, is that it's very difficult to predict sport and football in particular. So definitely don't beat yourself up. Just accept that if you were happy with your decision going into the game week and you made on paper what you thought was the correct decision, for example, benching Foden, then realistically, all you can say is that was a lot of bad luck, or that was negative variance. You hold your hands up and say that's part of the game and just move on to game week 24. But obviously for me, a really, really good game week. I can't complain at all, getting a big green arrow, and hopefully I can continue to gain and repeat this now and gain that momentum and get into the top 100k back to where I would like to be with a 5 or 4 potentially digit rank. So that was Game Week 23. Like I said, let me know down below how many points you scored. But now let's move ahead to Game Week 24, a fresh week. So looking ahead to Game Week 24, of course, this is not my team selection video. That will be out on Thursday. So this is just a quick look at what I'm currently thinking at the start of the week with my team. I actually think I'm in a really, really good position. I'm delighted with where my season's at. I'm still a little bit further away from where I would like to be rank-wise, but don't get me wrong, 160k at this point is still a very good rank. I've got one free transfer, a little bit of money in the bank, and apart from a few injury doubts, I'm actually not too far away from where I would like to be in an ideal world right now. And I could well end up rolling the transfer this week. I'm not necessarily saying I think that's the best play, and we'll discuss in a section both my watch list and my possible transfer plans and routes moving forward. But there is a world in which I do just say, do you know what? I've got a good starting 11 this week. If Gordon is maybe available, then maybe I even have a substitute. Or if Pau Torres is maybe back, then maybe I have a substitute. But the 11's looking good. Let me just rock with them. And going into double game week 25, I can carry 2 free transfers. That may well be the best plan. And just in case you didn't see the announcement over the weekend, and maybe you just switched off from football, the Liverpool-Luton game has now been confirmed as being in game week 25. So that's what we predicted. The Premier League left it very, very late to announce it, only just over 2 weeks before the game. But that therefore means that Liverpool in game week 25 have a double of Brentford and Luton. So it's a very, very good game week for them. And now they have, in 2 game weeks, Burnley at home, Brentford away, Luton at home. So looking very, very good for Liverpool assets now. And I am very fortunate that I didn't sell Darwin, because I actually sold Alvarez the night before the announcement. So I could have quite easily sold Darwin and I would be in a slightly worse position than I am right now. So that therefore means, as things stand, looking at double game week 25, I've got Trent, I've got Darwin, I've got Foden, and I've got Haaland. So I already have 4 double game week players. Of course, Brentford and Luton both double as well. So we are looking at the likes of Adebayo, Tony, Kaminsky, Doughty. There are other players that we might want. But really, I am thinking, do I want to get 3 Liverpool, 3 City? I probably want to add, at the very least, a 5th player from both City and Liverpool. Whether that be a Jota, or a KDB, or a Van Dijk, or a City defender. We'll discuss all of the potential options in the next section. But I am looking at maybe adding a 5th asset from those 2 teams. The other thing to think about more macro before I speak about specific players is game week 26 is then a blank game week for Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, and Luton. So like I said, as things stand, currently 4 double game week players for 25 with the potential of adding a 5th, maybe even a 6th. But I also have 5 players currently blanking in game week 26, which is Porro, Trent, Palmer, Richarlison, and Darwin. I just sold Salah, who was my 6th. So again, you can only bench 3 outfield players in a blank game week if you want to field 11, right? If I have 5 blanks going into game week 26, that would only be 9 players that I can field. So that does create an issue, and it's something to think about. And it's one of the reasons adding a Van Dijk or a Jota or a Doughty or an Adebayo is, yes, giving me extra players for game week 20, or extra fixtures, I should say, for game week 25, but it's giving me another player that blanks in 26. And of course, you will have transfers in 26 and the possibility of taking a hit to bring players in. But you want to try and limit that wherever possible, because let's say your plan is to go into game week 26 with 5 players blanking and you sell 2 of them for a -4 hit to give you just 3 players blanking on your bench. That is by all means a fine plan. The issue that you'll find there is what happens if you get a suspension, someone gets red carded in 25. What happens if you get 2 injuries and a suspension and then 1 player loses their place? That is obviously worst case scenario, and in any given week that would really screw you up. But just banking on the fact that you're going to have at least 1 or 2 transfers in 26 to remove players that are blanking, it's a brave call to make. So you almost want to, I think, as you move towards game week 26, start thinking about, are there players that you can remove? And of course, you can't remove your Liverpool assets before blank 26 because they double in 25. You can only remove them going into 26. So really, it's Porro, Richarlison, Palmer. I need to think about, do I want to sell 1 or 2 of them over the next couple of weeks? Because it starts to set me up towards blank game week 26. The only issue with selling Spurs assets is they have a confirmed fixture in blank game week 29. So that then makes it difficult. You sell them because they blank in 26, but then they're back in blank 29. So it's not easy trying to think macro at this point, but I would just count right now as things stand. And you can let me know down below in the comments, how many players do you have doubling in 25? I've got 4. And then how many players do you have blanking in 26? I've currently got 5. I would say if you've got 8+ players blanking in 26, you might be starting to think about a free hit. And if you've got 1 or 2 players from City or Liverpool, and maybe only 1 free transfer, you may be starting to look at a free hit in 25. So unless you're in those really extreme positions where you've got no doublers for 25 or loads of blankers for 26, then I probably wouldn't be looking at using a free hit in those 2 weeks. But for me, I think I'm well set up. Already 2 City, 2 Liverpool. Not too many players blanking in Game Week 26. So from a macro perspective, I think my team's in a good position. I would, of course, like I said, like to add another City or Liverpool player. So I'm looking at positions to do that. Do I want to bring like a Van Dijk into a defence? Do I try and squeeze a Jota or KDB into my team? Which, again, we'll look at the possibilities of how to do that in a bit. The other issue that I, of course, have is still my defence isn't in a particularly good position. Porro, I don't think is great moving forward, given that Spurs aren't keeping clean sheets and he blanks in 26, and he's quite expensive as well. So he's causing a bit of an issue for me there. Trent, we just don't know how many minutes he can play at the moment. He obviously played less than 60 minutes in Game Week 23. Once Connor Bradley's back, is he still going to create some competition for Trent? We don't yet know. Gomez can play now at right back because they have Robertson back at left back. So I do wonder if Trent's minutes are fully secure. And again, he blanks in 26. Gabriel feels fairly okay for now because at least he's playing despite the -1 in 23. And then I've got Pau Torres and Taylor, who are currently both flagged with a 50% chance of playing. There are rumours going around that Charlie Taylor could be out for up to 2 months with like a slipped disc in his neck. If that's the case, he proves an issue, right? Because no, I don't want to play Charlie Taylor most weeks. But again, in Game Week 26, you need all of your players. And the same, again, for Game Week 29. So if Charlie Taylor's not available for Game Week 26, then I have to sell him. So that's another transfer I've got to use on a player that I don't really want to use a transfer on. And the same with Pau Torres. I don't need Pau Torres in most weeks, right? I've got 3 defenders that, for the most part, should get minutes. But again, going into 26, I'm going to need him. So I'm more hopeful on Pau Torres. By the sounds of it, he should be back in full team training this week. Charlie Taylor might prove an issue. So I also maybe need to make a defensive transfer at some point. But as I alluded to in the first section, the defenders are a bit of a mess at the moment. I don't really want any of them. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'd like to squeeze a Jota or a KDB in there. May have to make a defensive transfer. Gordon, I don't really have an issue with it if he is injured for this week, simply because I can bench him. But if I am looking to bring in the likes of Jota, KDB into midfield, then it probably would be Anthony Gordon that's sold this week. Mainly because he's got a difficult fixture in 26. He's likely to blank in 29. And also he is flagged for this week. And I like my other 4 midfielders. So there is a chance that I sell Anthony Gordon this week if I am to bring in like a Jota or a KDB or someone like that. I think my front line is fine for now. Haaland, Watkins, Darwin. I am looking, of course, at Ivan Toney because he doubles in 25. Could be a really nice transfer in, despite it being a difficult double. I also do like Adebayo, given the fact that there's a possible double against Bournemouth coming up soon. He's got the double in 25. He does blank in 26, though, which puts me off slightly, and therefore I think I'd probably just leave him for now and then maybe look to bring him in after the blank game week. Cunha's obviously playing very well, all of these players, but I'm kind of happy with my front line, and I think especially given that Haaland and Darwin both double in 25, I think most people will be looking to try and bring those 2 in for the double. So that's the position the team is currently in. I've rambled and waffled enough for now. Let's take a look at my watch list, discuss all of the players that I'm considering, and I've got 4 possible transfer plans or possibilities for Game Week 25, and I'd like your help with which you think is the best move for me this week. So before we take a look at my possible transfer plans for Game Week 24, here is my full watch list of players that I'm currently looking at, or at least players that I would like to bring in an ideal world. Obviously, you can't bring all of them in, and some of them aren't really a priority given the blanks and doubles, etc. But these are the players that I'm looking at. In the defence, it is really Van Dijk who's my favourite option. And I think a player that is probably going under the radar, given that he is one of the only players for both City and Liverpool that is just guaranteed to play the next few game weeks. Like, you are guaranteed to get Burnley, Brentford and Luton for Van Dijk. He's good for a goal. He's good for bonus points often as well. And when we are struggling, like, is Jota, Darwin, De Bruyne, Haaland, Foden, Alvarez, can you confirm any of those play both games in the double and in 24? Maybe you feel like you can. I can't. I definitely couldn't say with any certainty that any of those players play both. But Van Dijk, you know, can. And City don't really have any defenders that you would feel fully comfortable play the next 3 games for them as well in the Premier League. So Van Dijk is in a special position because, yes, he is a little bit expensive. And no, he doesn't carry that much attacking threat. But you at least have the safety of minutes and safety of starts. And if I decide I don't want to move for a Diogo Jota, which is a possibility. I just say, do you know what? I'm happy with my midfield. I don't think I'm going to move for him. Van Dijk could be a nice third Liverpool asset to have. It would be Trent, Van Dijk and Darwin, and I don't mind that. But of course, he is very expensive. So if I want to do like Charlie Taylor to Van Dijk, I can't quite afford that. I could do Pau Torres to Van Dijk, or it could be as a combination of moves. But if he was a little bit cheaper, if he was like 5.5, I think I'd do it in a heartbeat because I think he's an absolutely brilliant FPL asset. He's just at a very tricky price point, sadly. Walker and other City defenders, Ake, Gvardiol, whoever I think is nailed on enough that I think there's a possibility of them starting both in the double. They are, of course, a possibility, but my issue with City defenders is they always feel like they've got a very low ceiling. They're okay for clean sheets, although they don't really seem to keep them, but playing for a good defense, but they're not great for bonus points. And apart from Ake, they don't really carry much attacking threat. So maybe Ake would be the one to go for if I was looking at it. But I just feel like Walker is still the most nailed on. I know he missed out one game, and I know there's stuff going on in his own personal life behind the scenes, but I feel like Walker has been absolutely critical to the City team this year, and I just think he'll continue to start based on everything that we've seen to this point. The other player that I'm looking at, this was maybe more the case if Pau Torres is out long term and he's the one I want to replace, is just replacing him with an Aston Villa player. At the moment, I've got Moreno here, but the news coming out today, I'm recording this on Monday evening, by the way, is that Konsa could be out for 2 or more games, and it could be a slightly more serious issue than they first thought. If that's the case, Matty Cash should be pretty nailed on to start at right back for most of the time that Konsa's out. So Moreno, Cash, Diego Carlos should be getting pretty good minutes as well. But that's only the case if Pau Torres is out long term, and maybe Konsa is too. But then does that make the Aston Villa defence a little bit weaker? Absolutely. So realistically, I don't want any defenders this week. I'm hoping I don't have to make a defensive transfer, but Van Dijk's definitely top of the list if I can afford him. For the midfielders, I've pretty much narrowed it down. I don't see myself making a midfield transfer at the moment, unless it's for Jota, Salah or Kevin De Bruyne, because of the double, right? I need to prioritise trying to make sure that I can maximise that double, and then after that, I'll start to consider some other players. Of course, to afford Salah or De Bruyne, I might have to make a move from someone else like a Garnacho. But regarding the 3 players that I'm really trying to target, it is Jota, Salah and De Bruyne. I've put Salah question mark because obviously I'm recording this on Monday night. I don't even know if he's going to be remotely close to being fit for Burnley, Brentford and Luton. But if he is, let's say he gets on the bench against Burnley, gets 30 minutes and looks good, and we think there's a chance he starts both in the double, maybe it is worth taking a -4 and breaking your team. But just remember, he then blanks in 26. So maybe the more straightforward transfer is Jota. But I suppose if Salah is back, do I want to risk going for Jota? Do I think he'll even start both in the double? So I think if there are concerns that Salah's going to be back for 24 or 25, maybe just avoid the Liverpool midfielders altogether. And like I said, maybe Van Dijk, Trent and Darwin is a really nice triple up. And you don't have to have all 3, by the way. Or you don't have to have 3 Liverpool players. You could just go in with 1 or 2. But it's just such a nice double. And Burnley this week. It feels like if you jump on this week, you get 3 really, really good fixtures if you think they'll start all 3 of them. The player that I really do want in an ideal world is De Bruyne, because not only does he double in 25, he also plays in blank game week 26. So he's not creating a headache for me going into the blank game week. My issue with De Bruyne is he's incredibly expensive, and most of the time, as you'll see in a second, it involves me selling the likes of Saka and Watkins if I want to afford him. And also probably taking a hit as well. So it just feels difficult. Like, since he's come back, obviously he had that brilliant performance off the bench against Newcastle, but then after that, 2 games where he's got, I think, a single assist. And listen, we know what he can do, and in other games he could do more than that, but it's a lot of money to pay, and I have to sell a very good asset to do it. So I just wonder, do I want to break the bank for De Bruyne once again? So tricky decisions are having to be made around Liverpool and City assets. For the forward spots, I don't think I'll make a forward transfer, purely just because I'm very happy with Watkins, Haaland and Darwin. But if I were to, Tony, Cunha, Adebayo and Solanke are all on the list for me. Of course, if we're looking at doublers, Tony and Adebayo are the 2 that double in 25. Tony plays in game week 26. So maybe a slightly better option there, given that he's not going to blank in 26. And also we know for a fact Tony plays in 29. So from a long-term perspective, Tony's the best player to have if I was to make a forward transfer. But, I mean, Cunha's been brilliant. So has Adebayo recently. But Cunha in particular going massively under the radar. And you know what? He could comfortably outscore all of the double game week players the way that he's playing at the moment. So maybe we're missing the boat there. Same with like the likes of Højlund. I've not put Højlund on here, but these players could quite comfortably outscore the likes of Darwin, because is Darwin even going to play both in the double? And then he blanks. So I wouldn't say like disregard single game week players by any means. And then obviously Solanke, lots of people looking to sell him this week. He's still on my watch list, a player that I'd like to own. But I do understand that if you're trying to bring in Darwin, Tony, Haaland, you can't own everyone. We've only got 3 forward spots. So that was me very quickly rattling through the watch list at the moment. Key for me is trying to bring in a fifth player from Man City, Liverpool, if I can. So let's take a look at my current transfer possibilities, and let's look if I want to take a hit this week. So that's how I'm recording this, which again is Monday evening. Here are the 4 possibilities that I currently have for transfers in Game Week 24 if I choose not to roll. And also based on the fact that I think that Pau Torres will be back in, or at least close to being back in full team training. If Pau Torres gets a setback, I'm probably just going to remove him because he's just proving an issue for me. He's obviously a bit more expensive than Taylor, so it might also allow me to get straight to Van Dijk. So if Pau Torres is ruled out, which hopefully won't be for a long period of time, then Pau Torres to Van Dijk could be a really nice transfer. But going off the basis that I don't want to move him out because I think he'll be back for 26, which is when I really need him. Here are the 4 current possibilities that I have with my team. The first is the most straightforward, which I think a lot of people will like. And if I'd have waited to make my transfers in 23, I would have just gone straight for Jota, is actually to just do Gordon to Jota. I know I've just brought Gordon in, but for me, Jota is the better asset to own for the next 2 game weeks. And I just think, again, Gordon plays in 26, assuming he's fit, and Jota doesn't. So this is creating a headache for me. It is an extra transfer, and it is removing a player that I have just brought in. But Jota just has such high upside for Burnley and then a double game week of Brentford and Luton that I think I would like to have him. But again, this is going on the basis that I think he will start all 3 of them. And if Salah is back, it does create a little bit more, obviously, rotation for that Liverpool front line and maybe makes him a slightly weaker option. I still think he could start all 3 as the number 9 with Darwin off the left in some of them and then obviously Salah on the right if Salah's fit. So I think Jota will start probably 2 of these games regardless, but maybe we'll wait on a little bit more information here. The only other thing that's putting me off this transfer quite a lot is that if I do Gordon to Jota, it gives me a massive benching headache and I'll have to not only bench a good player, but a good player with a good fixture. You've already seen my team. I don't really have many players that have poor fixtures this week. It's not as easy as it was last week for me. So bringing in Jota for, let's say, Gordon is a doubt, just makes it a lot more difficult to decide who to bench. So I'm unsure on this one, but it does feel the most straightforward transfer for my team. Option 2 is to sort out the defence slightly. Let's say we get that confirmation that Charlie Taylor could be out for up to 2 months and that he's probably not going to be available for blank game week 26. Then Taylor to Walker or Taylor to another City defender could be a nice transfer. Again, going to be difficult to try and predict minutes for the City back line. I would love to have the money to do Taylor to Van Dijk, but I just don't have it. I do have enough money for Taylor to Walker or to Ake or to Gvardiol for any of the City defenders, and maybe that's the best route for me. Is to bring in a probable doubler and at least a player that if they do at least play the game, they have a fixture in game week 26. So I don't mind that. I don't think it's a great transfer, but it's a transfer that I will need to make at some point and maybe just do it this week to get me in ahead, ready for the double in 25. And then option 3 and 4 involves me getting De Bruyne. So let's say that I do decide that De Bruyne is my third City asset that I want to own and he's a player that I'd like to bring in, not only bring in for the double, but maybe bring in this week to get him in ahead of Everton at home and obviously the 2 home fixtures again in game week 25. For me, unless I sell Trent, which I don't think Trent's a great option at the moment, but I don't think when you're in a position where you own him that it makes a lot of sense to sell him. It has to be one of Saka or Watkins that make way. Saka is the most straightforward route, but also out of Saka and Watkins, I think Saka's the player that I would like to own more. Of course, the Chelsea-Aston Villa game on Wednesday will give us a lot of information around blank game week 29, because if Chelsea lose that, then Chelsea and Arsenal will be a fixture in 29, which makes it very difficult to sell Saka. Even though that's a long way away, does make it difficult to sell him. Whereas if Aston Villa lose, which is less likely against Chelsea, then Aston Villa will have a fixture in 29, which makes it difficult to sell Watkins and maybe makes it a little bit easier to sell Saka. So that fixture will tell us a little bit more, but Saka to De Bruyne in one move does feel okay. My concern with this is Saka has still been returning, and in game week 25, no, he doesn't have a double, but he plays against Burnley. So it doesn't feel great selling Saka for De Bruyne, even though De Bruyne does have the double game week. So Saka De Bruyne, it feels like a slight upgrade, but it also feels like the kind of decision that could go horribly wrong for you. And you may well want Saka back in again very, very soon. With the Watkins transfer, the reason that I'm less keen on this is it involves a -4, and it involves me probably bringing in a player that blanks in game week 26. So if I want to bring in De Bruyne for someone like a Gordon in midfield, I could downgrade Watkins all the way down to someone like Adebayo. I really do like Adebayo. His underlying data is actually pretty strong. We'll probably discuss him in the Game Week preview video. I like him. Sheffield United at home in Game Week 24 is brilliant. He doubles in 25. He may have a double in 28 against Bournemouth, and he's probably quite likely to play in blank game week 29. So there's a lot to like about him. But it also does give me another player that blanks for 26, which will make it very, very difficult to field 11. And I also have to sell Ollie Watkins, and I have to take a -4 if I do it this week. So whilst I do think it's nice getting Adebayo and De Bruyne in for the double, and for the future fixtures as well, it also doesn't feel great removing Watkins as part of a -4, and also give me an extra fixture, an extra player that blanks in 26. So therefore, I think there are probably issues with all of these transfers. And I do think if I just go back to my team for you now, I do think rolling the transfer isn't a bad idea at all because I have a really strong starting 11. But I do think all of those transfers do improve me slightly. And my issue is if I want to bring in, especially a Liverpool asset ahead of the double game week, you've got to bring them in this week, I think, because they've got Burnley at home this week. If you're going to want them for 25, bring them in for this fixture as well, even if it gives you a benching headache. So I think if I decide that I want Jota's got to come in this week for me. You can't skip the Burnley at home fixture because that is the best of the three. So yeah, if I'm going to bring in Jota, it will be this week. If I'm going to bring in KDB, there is part of me that just thinks you don't need KDB for Everton at home. Maybe just wait a little bit and bring in KDB ahead of the double because you can also keep KDB through 26 as well because he doesn't blank. So that's where I'm leaning at the moment. If it's a defender transfer I want to make, or if it's KDB, I'm more likely to roll and do that move in 25. If it's Jota, he's likely to come in for 24 simply because of that Burnley at home fixture. I would love to know what you think down below in the comments. What do you think of my team? What do you think about the transfer possibilities? And if this was your team, what would you do with it? So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 24 transfer plans video. Hopefully you did enjoy it and you got some use out of it. And if you did, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. I do really appreciate the support. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.